story is on page 3, and two Kojos, Mr. Kutu and Mr. Yangson. It's important that this is the biggest headline on the daily graphic, especially because of today. We're dedicating today to talk a lot more about our kidneys. And today we're also unpacking the part of the budget that spoke more about health. And these non-communicable diseases that the Mahama Cares is suggesting to want to be a source fund for non-communicable diseases. Is important that, Mr. Kuto, earlier you were mentioning that we talk about the preventive measures, really, because in Ghana, far from cancer and then cardiovascular diseases, kidney, really, we don't really have the data, but the World Health Organization seems to suggest that in Ghana, it's part of the 42% causes of death in Ghana. It's part of it. And out of that 42 or 45% in between the years, it's kidney particularly, it's 10% of the entire 45% of persons who die in Ghana. And I like to think that we have only 2 kidneys. I don't know if there's another kidney anywhere.
2, nah, you don't get spare, just like new cars.
Now, I'm worried about Mr. Koto because before we came on, he was just telling me that he sold one of his kidneys.
Oh, really? Already?
You know, in business these days, business people will tell you that before you get a loan, financial institutions ask you for everything, including your kidney, because they want everything before they give you money. Yeah, so physically is there, but you know.
But what?
Maton.
What the collateral?
I hope that this dialysis conversation will not end here. It will extend because the confusion between whether or not there's free dialysis or not must be spoken or talked about, especially when the health minister says that there is no free dialysis. And again, Kojos, in December, the health ministry or the NHI authority indicated that they needed between 2 to 5.7 million to finance free dialysis. But as to what period this amount is needed to finance the number of persons living with dialysis, we're quite not sure. And so if the minister now says that there is no source of funding for it, I'm not surprised. And persons living with kidney diseases are saying that they are sitting on the fence. They are quite unsure because you can just wake up tomorrow and then the government will say, we cannot continue it. We're stopping it. The hospitals, the 40 hospitals who had received a certain amount of funds at the time that it was launched, which they tried to call as the pilot project, they are still providing free dialysis as of this morning. If they are going to stop because of what the minister said yesterday, I don't know. But as to whether they are pre-financing it so that the government is going to be paying later, that's a question we don't know. We don't have
Well, it's one
to
of the things we want to tackle today. We'll certainly be focused on the budget and what was said in there. We'll try and decode it and see whether or not there is anything that will end up helping out the kidney patients.
Right.
Okay, let me take you to the Ghanaian Times, and I'll also add a new finder. Ghanaian Times has the president on the front page. President Mahama backs 30-day ceasefire in Russia-Ukraine war. Don't use cumbersome processes to frustrate private sector investment. This is Reverend Anasapong. And key nuclear regulatory experts desert job for greener pastures. Here's a photo of Dr. Nikwashi Alote, the Director General of the Nuclear Regulatory Authority. There's an interesting story on the back page of the Ghanaian Times. Ramadan causes fruits, vegetable price hikes in the Upper West region. So this story is highlighting the price hikes in fruits. Yesterday, a friend called me. I was asking if I had mangoes or watermelons because she had gone somewhere and they were selling one watermelon for about 60 or something cedis. And I said, no, we don't have it. But if you look at this story, it says prices of fruits and vegetables have generally gone up in the Upper West region. It's not just Upper West region, it's gone up everywhere. Because some of the fruits are out of season and the main seasons are not in yet. And because some countries also knew they had Ramadan coming, like the UAE, Morocco and all those things, they came down to buy a lot of the fruits and they exported. I know a company in Ghana that exported over 20 trucks of fruits to Morocco, mangoes, and they drove from Morocco all the way to Ghana.
Wow.
Yes, with
we have that
refrigerated
much
trucks. Ghana produces over 500,000 tons of mangoes. So it's a seasonal thing. And so as we talk about the AETA, that Greek investment stuff, we need to invest in a lot of irrigation, because stuff like watermelons can be grown all year round with irrigation, bananas, all those things. There are some fruits that are seasonal because of the makeup of the plant. Those we can permit. Even those we can dry them. So I have dried mangoes at home. If I want to drink fresh mango juice, I rehydrate them, just put them in a blender, add water, blend. You have fresh juice, no additives. So we need to look at ways to do all these things.
I've always wondered why food demand goes up during Ramadan. Aren't they fasting?
They are fasting.
How come they're eating more?
Oh,
They
like
eat
to break
in the
the
morning,
fruit, yeah.
and then they break the fast.
In the evening,
And
yes.
in breaking the fast, you don't eat your regular food all the time. You need to include fruits, vegetables, herbs, because you've kept the body going empty for some time. So you don't just break your fast with your banku and okro, for example. So when we lived in Ijazongo, Ramadan was my favorite time of the year, because that's the time you get assorted fruits, assorted beverages, from your lamujins to your sobolos to your kunu and all those things. They're available all year round, and all month, and the snacks. So there are dynamics we need to look at.
You will notice, Kojo, again, that in the evenings, the cocoa sellers are more busy during Ramadan, because you want to take it easy on your stomach. You don't want to go hard as
I mean,
mentioned.
everything I know about Ramadan, and in fact, I agree that, yes, people tend to make a bit more of a variety of a meal in the evenings.
Yeah.
It still doesn't quite compute why the demand for food goes up so significantly. In some cases, 45%
You also look at it this way. During the month of Ramadan, people who would have gone around on a regular month without money, not eating properly, get to eat properly, because the Muslim community gets together. So broke people will still eat, because you go to the mosque and you go to the imam's house, or you go to places. So there's a lot of charity and generosity. So that charity and generosity goes into buying a lot of food to ensure that everybody's. We Christians, I remember my mom's mother and our fellow's mother, Charlie, they used to sort us out nice. So Ramadan, my mom would not cook much, because you understand. So too many dynamics. We can spend a day looking at the Ramadan economy and all that. There's also the new finder, Kojo, if you permit me. BoG must sell assets to Recapitalize. The finance minister says no, he won't give the BoG money. They have hotels and guest houses. Even the new BoG head office, they can decide to
rent it out,
to sell it, and lease it back. Whatever they do, they should go ahead.
But what would that mean for a stalled project? If that project is not completed, what would that mean on finance?
Well, this is just the Bank of Ghana and their deficits and their and the request for a bailout. And the BoG head office, at least, is significantly completed. So it's part of the assets they have that they can make a decision on. More stories. Mining sector hit with higher taxes. This is some of the things that came up in the budget. And e-levy collapsed 17,000 businesses. So, Kojo, can we get some more details from the newspapers?
My goodness.
Yeah, 17,000. There's an interesting story in the. So I'll give you the Mahama Cares first. MFR is already giving us something on Mahama Cares. There's a story on flooding, which is in one of the newspapers I saw earlier, that there's a committee formed to evaluate our readiness to deal with flooding. And so yesterday they flew over Accra to assess flood-prone areas. On page 11 of the Ghanaian Times, illegal buildings on Sakumono Temaramsa site pulled down. The story here says the Greater Accra Regional Minister, Miss Linda Obiniwa Akwele Oklu, yesterday caused the demolition of walls and buildings in the Ramsar site at Sakumono in Tema. And we know the Deputy Chief of Staff is leading that committee to assess our flood readiness. It also has the legal counsel for the President, Madam Marietta, and some military officers, NADMO and all that. Beyond Accra, I expect them to go to Kumasi, to go to Tamale, to go to Takrade, to go to the coastal areas as well, because the cost of flooding on the economy each year is about 2 billion Ghana cedis. The things and assets that get damaged, the relief. For example, in this year's budget, about 400 million Ghana cedis is going to coastal erosion and coastal flooding victims, and also the Akosombo spillage victims. We need to manage these occurrences and prevent them in total, because the cost of flooding on the economy is huge. The funds going into this, if we had prevented them, could go into better infrastructure, could go into Mahama cares, could go into kidney treatment, and a whole lot of other things.
The Akosombo spillage, a little over 50 years ago, displaced the people of Bakpa, and it's a small community between Adidome and Sugakope. Now, the old place, which is why they relocated there, is called Old Bakpa. But because of these Akosombo spillage, a little over 50 years, it destroyed the entire community, that they had to relocate away to this small community, which is still there. And unfortunately, they're still part of the persons that were hit quite recently as well.
So
until today, they were not compensated.
So can you imagine, 50 years ago, you lost your home, you got nothing. You moved to a new place, and then 2 years ago, you lost it again. Oh, child.
It's like what will go wrong will go wrong. Memphis law.
As if some people there, Ghana no won't count.
There be. Quickly, Kojo, I was thinking that former sanitation minister would have made the newspapers today, especially because in court, day 2 in court, she said that she's unable to tell the exact amount of money that her household stole, that the household stole from her storage. But since we're in court, let me just bring to your attention
That's a nice problem to have, though.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
you know,
because the way she said,
I mean, you just have so much that you can't quite tell how much was stolen from you. I mean, something was stolen. You just, I mean, it's hard to tell.
but she says that because they were taking at different times, she's unable to compute the entire amount of
God,
money.
really?
Guess what? So there is contention between the ownership of a jewelry box, between the household, one of the households, and then she, the sanitation minister. So now the case has been adjourned, where now both lawyers would have to come and argue the true ownership of a particular jewelry box, which the household purports to have bought on the streets of Abelemkpe, where the former sanitation minister used to live. But I wanted to bring to you
What?
yes, the true ownership of that box, because it contains still some jewelry anyway. But still in court, the Supreme Court is set to hear Akwetia MP's contempt case, and this is why the Supreme Court has ruled that it'll hear the case of Ernest Yaokumi, the embattled New Patriotic Party Member of Parliament for Akwetia, despite his contempt conviction by the Koforidua High Court. Now, Mr. Kumi is before the High Court of the land with a certiorari application urging the court to quash his contempt conviction by the High Court. Now, he was cited for contempt because when the case was before the High Court in Koforidua, he failed to show up, and his reasons were that he was performing parliamentary duties, which, you know, when you're a parliamentarian, you have some immunity. But the argument then will be, if you knew that the results were not legally pronounced by the EC, and you purport to be a member of parliament, which the clerk would have told you at the time that it was swearing in the members of parliament, then you cannot, the argument will be, you cannot hold yourself to be a legally elected member of parliament. And so I really would like to see how the Supreme Court will bring clarity to this, because then it will give us new
The Supreme
rules to
Court
look at.
should take the opportunity to also clarify this concept of parliamentary duty. Because I'm getting sick and tired of hearing people. I mean, to as a cry and they ask you, you say you are performing parliamentary
Maybe
duty.
it has indirect ways of helping you perform parliamentary
No.
duties. We
Let's
don't
be
know.
real. Let's find a way of, because as for Ghana, anything you don't define, people will take advantage of it. So let's clearly define it. I remember not so long ago, a media house in Accra was conducting some sort of exercise to bring sanity to our traffic situation, and they would be stopping parliamentarians who drivers were breaking the road traffic laws, and they will all insist that they were performing parliamentary duties or on their way to perform parliamentary duties. So you're coming from your side chick's house, cry. You are performing parliamentary.
What
duty.
about the
Please,
use of sirens?
yeah, I mean, as for that one, I think we've clarified it. We know who is allowed to use sirens and who isn't. It's the enforcement that is left. But as for this parliamentary duty thing, everybody will slip through it if we don't get it right. So if the Supreme Court gets the opportunity, in addition to this, they should give some, what do they call those things? Consequential orders, right? So that we know once and for all what is parliamentary duty and what isn't.
I think this one will now give us clarity. The Supreme Court, by its mandate, will interpret that provision in the Constitution, what amounts to parliamentary duty.
Yeah.
So we'll get some clarity.
Let me give you some other stories, and if I maybe later you also have an opportunity to explain what certiorari means
Okay.
in English.
Okay.
Okay, I think you legal people should use English. All right.
Wopesa.
I mean, in fact, the Daily Graphic made it
And I
easy.
encourage journalists to use English when they are reporting from courts,
Right.
so that we can all get along with that. Anyway, e-levy
Bona fide.
e-levy collapsed 17,000 businesses. This is according to the leadership of the Mobile Money
And I want us
Vendors
to delve
Association.
into that a bit more during the show. So